I misspoke. The Cowgirls host Texas Tech and Gallagher-Iba tonight. Last night, the Cowboys got hosted by the Red Raiders in Lubbock. And a Cowboy comes home as A.J. Green circles the wagons to come back to Oklahoma. He's stilly bound. Speaking of stilly bound, is this the biggest season ever for Oklahoma State fans? Is there another more anticipatory season? Let's break down all of the likely candidates.
You are Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma State Cowboys, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Howdy, y'all, and hello, all. Welcome back to Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily stop for all things Cowboy and Cowgirl related. My name is Cody Stovall. I want to thank you kindly for stopping by to make this your first listen. We're available on all of your podcasting platforms, visually as well on YouTube. Find me personally on Twitter at AllDayOStateToday. We're partially brought to you by LinkedIn. Every new potential hire is like a high-stakes gamble. Make sure that LinkedIn Jobs is the right fit to find you the right candidates faster and for free. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions do apply. The terms and conditions applicable to 2024 are likely and fairly a Big 12 title or bust. Now, we have discussed some of the other potential candidates, but Marshall Scott did do a very good job breaking down all of the different years, especially in our lifetimes, that Oklahoma State has had a lot of anticipation rolling into a season, whether that be the idea of a conference championship or more. He did a really good job breaking down the different years that Oklahoma State's been a legitimate contender for something bigger than most of us historically have ever seen. So let's jump into 2009. 2008, we were coming off a 9-4 record. Obviously, when you have Des Bryant and Kendall Hunter and Zach Robinson, you're going to be able to conjure up a lot of ability. Not to mention the year previous in 2008, our losses were to number 1, number 2, and number 3 in Texas Tech, and OU. We did take down a former number 3 in Mizzou, and then we lost to number 15 Oregon in the bowl game. So coming into 2009, obviously there was a lot of anticipation. That was cut short because Des Bryant got screwed by the NCAA. He went and took a dinner, right, with Dion, and he got in trouble for it. So we lost him after we upset number 13 Georgia in Boone-Pickens Stadium, which growing up was like the biggest game I can remember as a kid. I remember, a little while previously, 2007 maybe, when Nebraska was coming into town and we took care of business. That was big. But Georgia coming to Stillwater was a very rare occurrence. And for us to beat them, even more rare. Well, and then we lost to the Fighting Dana offense of Houston. We bounced back, but then we didn't get to see Des Bryant play the rest of the season. Now, we did have a pretty daggone good season, right? Obviously, again, going 9-4, but that was kind of a little bit of a disappointment. In that season was winning a Big 12 title, a legitimate aspiration. Possibly, let me know down in the comments section. Maybe you remember a little bit more than I do, but I don't recall, even though 2009 was going to be amazing and everybody was waiting on the Georgia game, right? It, to me, didn't necessarily feel like we were going to be able to win a conference title. But let me know down in the comment section what you think. Obviously, 2011, after going 11-2 in 2010 and seeing the first iteration of Whedon and Blackman come together, and Whedon throws for 4,277 yards and 34 tutties, with Blackman catching 111 passes for 1,782 yards and 20 touchdowns, which is, again, partially why he was inducted into the College Football Hall of Fame recently. And that's some of the reason being is right there. They held a joint press conference, which we'll come to find out a little bit later. It's a pretty cool deal that they were announcing the return. We did a lot of amazing things, and we did, in fact, win a Big 12 title. That was something that we knew was a possibility, but there was always a little shade of apprehension, right? Because us winning the Big 12 title as opposed to having the opportunity were two entirely different things for most of our Oklahoma State fandom. But yeah, and then you start the season off 10-0. You're number 2 in the country. You have a legitimate shot, not only a legitimate shot, you are on the fast track to play for a national championship. The women's basketball plane crash happens. We have some players on the team that lose some very close people to them. Some of them even like potential dating style of relationships. And we have a tragic loss. And we decide to play the game anyways, even against maybe the better judgment of the Iowa State athletic director. And it just, it's not necessarily an excuse per se, because there shouldn't be an excuse. You shouldn't be losing to Iowa State, even though Ames, Iowa is a difficult proposition for anybody. We won the Big 12 title, capped it off with a Fiesta Bowl W, and that is what turned the CFP into a thing. That was the last year of the BCS because it was proven that Oklahoma State analytically kind of got screwed when you added the quote-unquote human component to the computer systems, and we got outvoted by Alabama for the national title by 0.008%. So it is what it is. 2017. Now that's where we're cooking and huddle. For me, that was my most anticipatory season. 2016, we have a 10-3 record. And Mason Rudolph clearly is the king of Stillwater. At that moment, it looked like Rudolph was going to be able to go down as the greatest of all time. And, he's still definitely 100% in that conversation. But kind of like 2011, when we have the announcement, Mason Rudolph is coming back with James Washington. But not only that, we had Calvin Bundage coming back. Obviously, we had Marcel Aitman coming back. We had Dylan Stoner coming back. We had a young Malcolm Rodriguez. We had a young Devin Harper. We had Chad Whitener coming back. AJ Green coming back. Huh? Yeah? You like that? Now, we did climb to number 6 in the polls, and then we lost to TCU in Boone Pickens Stadium. And, we had a phenomenal road win against West Virginia, right? The Geno Smith duels. And then another Baker, Mason, Bedlam shootout, 62-52. So we finished the same way we rolled in. We rolled in 10-3. We finished the season 10-3, which was, in my personal estimation, a little bit of a disappointment. 2020, the return of the 2,000-yard rushing Chuba Hubbard, and of course, Tylan Wallace coming in as well. Chuba Hubbard running for almost 2,100 yards the previous year. We had a legitimate Heisman-style guy. It was very disappointing. It was a shortened season, but then COVID pops up, and then the OAN t-shirt stuff happens. So there's obviously a little bit of discontentment inside the locker room. And then we know, unfortunately, how that ended out. Now, is 10-3 bad? No, but again, we came in 10-3, hoping to leave something better. 8-5 to 2020, and we left 8-3. So, a bad season? No, not at all. But with everything that was, transpiring before the negativity coming into the season, yes, a Big 12 title was definitely on the horizons. 2022, after coming up 6 inches short of winning the Big 12 title. And then Mike Gundy does his famous "We Have a Logo Too" in his presser, live on stage with a national audience. That was phenomenal, right? You get Spencer Sanders coming back. You get, a lot of your catalysts on the defensive side of the ball all coming back. And once again, didn't live up to the bill, going from 12-2 to 7-6. And this is when the catastrophic things at the end of the season started happening, right? The fracturing in the locker room grew to an unprecedented level, and it got so far out of control that we didn't have a clear direction on what was actually happening due to some of the absences. But that was the biggest disappointment. And then last season, or this previous season, there wasn't a lot of anticipation coming in, but when you saw the schedule break and then you saw some of the things that were going on in the spring, in the fall, you saw that we have some capabilities. We have some talent. We should be able to have a good year. Didn't start off so hot. We found a way to rebound, Mike Gundy's greatest turnaround ever, one of the greatest turnarounds in the history of all of football, because that doesn't happen typically. You don't do what Mike Gundy and the Cowboys were able to do and flip this thing on its head. So now we enter 2024. After a season where we played for a Big 12 title, were we overmatched by Texas? Yes. Now we expect to be, and I think that's what I wanted to emphasize here. That's what's a little bit different, is it not? Like some of these years, it was like, you know what? We might be good enough to compete for a Big 12 title. We might be good enough to maybe win a title. It's different when you're coming in saying, you know what, dag nabbit, we should win it. We absolutely should be playing in it. If it's not Oklahoma State, Arizona, it should be Oklahoma State, Utah, Oklahoma State, Kansas State, Oklahoma State, somebody. But of course, that's what to me makes this one a little bit different. The anticipatory side of things isn't just to get there. This year, the expectation with virtually 20 of 22 returning starters, plus a very young group of guys defensively that were in year one of Brian Arno. Yes, this is the most anticipatory season of all time for Oklahoma State Nation, because it's not just about getting there. This time, with this many returning guys, the expectation is not just getting there, it's winning there and then going on to the CFP. That is the expectation. I guarantee you that's the expectation inside the locker room. Now they've got to buckle down, go to work, and make sure that they don't get any lackadaisical ideas. I don't think that's going to be a problem with the opening opponent just winning another FCS national title. South Dakota State's won 29 games in a row, so I don't think we will overlook them, which is not necessarily a bad thing. It's not necessarily a great thing that you open the season with that quality of an opponent, right? Because it's a darn if you do, darn if you don't style of scenario. But nonetheless, and when you do start the season against this good of an opponent, you should not have to worry about overlooking them. I think that's the positivity right there. We got more positivity. We were talking about AJ Green, so let's continue the AJ Green conversation. But before we do that, if you're looking at, the landscape today, again, not only hiring can be extremely difficult, but if you don't have the right tools, you don't have the right technology, you don't have the right assets available to you to get the right hires, then you're doing yourself a disservice, which is why LinkedIn is the bee's knees in this department. They're not just your run-of-the-mill typical job board. They've got a vast network of over 1 billion with a B professionals that make it the best place to hire. It's so easy, in fact, that 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate in the first 24 hours. That is why small businesses rank LinkedIn jobs number one in delivering quality hires versus the leading competitors. Thankfully, the LinkedIn process makes it intuitive, quick, and easy just for you. Post your job for free today at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Again, that is linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Post your job for free. LinkedIn.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions do apply. Whenever you look at some of the gaps that we've been able to fill via the transfer portal, it hasn't always necessarily been the big ta-da that I thought maybe a Jalen Lucas would have provided. But we also knew that Jalen Lucas was going to be relegated more to a, I don't want to say a gimmick guy, but a guy that we can utilize in the return game and a multitude of other areas. Knowing that Ollie Gordon was going to be the guy, and then knowing that Brennan Presley was going to be the guy, and also knowing that Brennan Presley is more than suitable in the return department, I understand why Jalen Lucas decided not to come to Oklahoma State. Now we get to breathe a sigh of relief because we have the gadget guy in AJ Green. If that name sounds familiar, that's because he was a 4-star top 200 product coming out of Tulsa, Oklahoma, by way of Union High School. He was recruited by all of the heavy hitters in the SEC, Arkansas, OU, Texas, Texas A&M, Auburn, And then, of course, a lot of your teams up north as well. Oklahoma State was in on him as well. Oklahoma State made his top 10, made his top 8, made his top 5. Why did he decide to go to Arkansas over Oklahoma State or Auburn or A&M or Texas? Is because of Arkansas's agreement to let him play running back. Oklahoma State, we were really wanting him to play defensive back. And there were some schools that wanted him as a wide receiver. Obviously, playing corner was something that was very high on everybody's list, but he really wanted to play running back. Arkansas said, come on down, play some running back. And then he was more of a scat type of guy, a third down style of back that you could use out of the backfield because he does run a 10-3 100-meter dash and a 21-second 200-meter dash. So he's a speed guy. And when you do look at the film, you do see the progress because in high school, obviously, he was just considerably faster than most people. He obviously had a lot of elusivity built in there as well. And then the quick hips, which were natural to him, which is why we were looking at him more of a defensive back, goes to Arkansas, does his thing, bulks up a little bit, coming in now at 5'11", 195 pounds. He still has the speed. When you look at this last season, 2022, it wasn't garbage time. He played legit split minutes with Rocket in the backfield for Arkansas. And now they're losing both A.J. Green and Rocket. So their number 1 and number 2 running back at Arkansas are gone. Now, one thing I will say that I'm hoping that he's able to establish a little bit more in Stillwater is the ability or the willingness, maybe I should say, to go north and south. He does have a propensity to get to the sideline. When he does get there, he's a home run threat for sure. Now, he seems to be maturing in his ability to utilize patience, right? There are a plethora of runs where he is able to stay calm, be patient, and use his blockers, his offensive linemen in front of him to maximize the yards that he can gain. But he does like to bounce it outside. And when you see how fast he is, it does make some sense why. He's also a massive threat in the return game, having almost 300 yards for Arkansas in that department as well. So if we're looking for somebody to help out BP, we got that. If we're looking for somebody to help out more of the lightning package to go with Ceci in the backfield to help Ollie Gordon, it appears as though we have that now. A.J. Green is a good get. This was somebody that was like very, very high on our wish list a few years back. But we wanted him to play defensive back. He really wanted to play running back. He goes to Arkansas. You know, he puts on some weight. He adds a little bit to his frame. And then he's productive. He has almost 1,000 yards in his time in Arkansas. So if we're looking for that lightning package to kind of help the development of Ceci, we now have that, which is going to allow Jaden Allen Hendricks, the other big bruiser, right? The other 225-pound running back, that dude, he can develop. If we want him to get up to 235 this season, that'd be a target goal. We can do that with A.J. Green now in the fold. Now, I'm not going to say he's going to be a shoe-in for RB2 because we have seen what Ceci Vlahe can add to the dynamics of the running back room. But this is wonderful news because he fills a lot of those voids that maybe a Jalen Lucas wouldn't have been able to provide, and he's an Okie. So he's coming back home. You know it means something because he wanted to come back home with originally committing to Tulsa. So instead of Tulsa stealing somebody from us, we technically get to steal one now from Tulsa after he leaves Arkansas. Pretty big deal. I would say when you look at Kobe Hilton, the UTEP 6', 205-pound transfer, he fills the void of what Darius Webb was potentially going to be as a Cowboy. Now with A.J. Green coming in, this is that additional lightning to the Thunder packaging that we absolutely needed, and he's going to be able to help in the return game, so it adds a little bit of that Swiss Army knife layer to it. I really like Tyler Foster. I think Tyler Foster is going to be able to just launch off of what Josiah Johnson was able to do, including some of the emergence in the coaching department from a Jason McIndoe. And of course, Isaiah Glass, who could start at probably 75% of the Big 12 tomorrow is coming in to provide a pivotal, additional starting level tackle. And the beauty of that is he can play both ways. So whether he's going to back up Dalton Cooper at left tackle or he's going to back up Jake Springfield at right tackle, he might even have the flexibility, and maybe this is key here with Charlie Dickey, to have an emergence of some inside game as well, just to enhance your resume and capabilities. Talk about resume capabilities. Texas Tech is building a pretty decent resume in basketball. For Cowboys, on the other hand, I apologize for misspeaking yesterday. I had everybody all hyped up and pumped up for the Lady Red Raiders to come into Galgraba. Instead, we ended up playing Texas Tech in Lubbock. I apologize for getting that snafu backwards. But if you did watch the Texas Tech game, obviously let me know down in the comment section what were your primary points that stood out. Because we did start out of the gates hot, leading 7-0 right out of the gates. And Bryson Thompson drops a cool as a cucumber, 17 points. But there was a lot more that transpired. We'll get to that after we tell you about FanDuel. Right? You don't need to transpire. Don't sweat your bets. All right? Make your first bet be your best bet with FanDuel. Right now, our new customers get $150 back in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. It's that simple. 150 bones back in your pocket in bonus bets, win or lose. Y'all already know this app is safe, secure, super easy to use. You can bet on parlays. You can bet on over, under, player props. Who's going to win the Super Bowl? Who's going to win the NBA championships? And more by going to FanDuel.com/lockedon. Go there down and make your first bet your best bet at FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, the official partner of the NFL. We're not talking NFL, we're talking basketball. And you know what? We're not going to be super negative Nancy because it wasn't a home game. You guys know my feelings on this, right? Mike Boynton has said it himself. If you can protect the home floor, you're going to give yourself a multitude of opportunities. Thankfully, this was on the road. Therefore, it makes this loss a little bit easier. We're still above 500, sitting at 8-7. And again, Bryce Thompson did drop a cool 17 points, going 7 of 11. But Javon Small continues to be a dude when we need him to, chipping in another 15. John Michael Wright comes off the bench and adds a pretty clutch 14 points. And Pop Assault alleged Isaacs drops 24 points. And really, he did a lot in this game to kind of not only stem the tide for Taco Reckham Tech, but allow them to go on a 19-2 run. Guys, we talked yesterday about how Jacie Hoyt and women's basketball can uplift our spirits. We can have that happen. And this is why. Because if you got to watch the start, you're like, okay, we got this. Keon Williams started pretty hot. He looked like he was on a mission to make up for some of the issues that he had in the loss to Baylor. Brandon Garrison looked a little bit more human in this game. We get up 7-0. Right at one point in time, we were up like 20-11. And then we go like 4.5 minutes without scoring a daggone basket. The frustration that we discussed yesterday was the fact that we keep losing the same kind of ways. Well, this one wasn't close. We got beat up 90-73. But realistically, like, it wasn't all bad. We just went over some of the points, the production, right? But before Texas Tech, went on that run where we couldn't make or buy a daggone bucket, there was still some positives. All right, we did play pretty aggressive. But whenever you allow somebody to shoot over 53% from anywhere on the floor, consecutively, you're going to have a rough day. You're going to have a rough go of it. And unfortunately, that's really what happened here. We still have a lot of opportunity. But when they're shooting 62% from the floor and 52% behind the three-point line, it doesn't matter if you're shooting 47% from three, which is pretty daggone good. It doesn't matter if you're just shooting 51% from three. If you dig yourself up that big of a hole where your defense is horrendous, which honestly, our defense hasn't looked this bad in like a couple of years, which is another reason why I'm not okay. You're never okay with this kind of thing, but I'm willing to let it slide just a little bit more, makes life a little bit easier because it was on the road. And now we stay on the road, get this ugliness out of the way. We go take on Iowa State. Winning in the Coliseum is what Galgraba used to be. That difficult. You did not want to come into Galgraba, ever. You didn't want to. Now we get to go to the Hilton Coliseum. It's the same way. It doesn't really matter how quote-unquote bad or great Iowa State is. Winning in the Hilton Coliseum is a very, very, very difficult proposition. So it would be a massive win, the biggest win of the year, if we can pull it off this Saturday. But until then, Jacie Hoyt, finally, all right, sorry, wasn't last night. It's tonight that she gets to help revitalize the exuberant feeling that Galgraba should provide for every Cowboy and Cowgirl fan by making the loss to Texas Tech men's basketball last night a little bit more salvageable, or, you know, the salivation not so bad in your mouth. Get rid of the bad taste, Jacie. All right? Get rid of the bad taste that we had to experience last night with men's basketball by taking care of the Lady Raiders. I'm excited. It's kind of weird that I'm more excited about women's basketball than men's basketball. I don't like that. I would love men's to just get on a run. Oh, and speaking of getting on nice runs at Galgraba Arena, hats off to wrestling, cracking the top 5 as 3 representatives occupied the top 5 spaces in the Big 12. Obviously, Penn State being number 1, Mizzou, number 2, number 3, Iowa, number 4, Iowa State, number 5, Oklahoma State. It's nice, right, to see our name back where it's supposed to be in the sport of wrestling. We should always be 1 or 2 or 3. Yeah? Okay. But top 5 is the start. Getting a top 5 W on the road, that was the start. Jacie Hoyt, Cowgirls, get her done. Everybody tune in tonight to catch the Cowgirls take on the Lady Red Raiders. Feeling pretty good. Feeling pretty good about what Hannah Gusters can get done. Feeling pretty good about having one of the best freshmen in America. Feeling pretty good about where we're sitting at wrestling. Cowboys, I don't know, shock the world. Go win one in Hilton. And then we can worry about taking care of Galgraba Arena. All righty, y'all. That's all we're going to have for this one right here. You know I love you. As always, God bless. Go Pokes. And thank you for tuning in to make this your first listen here on Locked On Oklahoma State. You could be anywhere. So happy you choose to be here. Shout out to everybody out there in podcast country. I greatly appreciate you all. This is the foundation. This is how we can continue to rock and roll. Travel safe, drive safe, listen safe. Don't get too riled up. That's my job. And on YouTube, leave a like, leave a comment, share, subscribe. Obviously, that's most important. And comment down in the comment section. Let me know about what your biggest anticipatory season of all time was, how you're feeling about the Cowboy basketball scenario, and are you as in love with Jacie Hoyt staying hot on the hardwood tonight as I am? All righty, y'all. You know the drill. Later, taters.